It's time for New Release Thursday. Or in this case, newer or newish release Thursday. I have newer releases than the ones I'm going to talk about today, but I have to discern sometimes about what I think you guys will care about. Unless I have the word skinny puppy or meat bee manifesto in the title, my subscribers don't care. So I don't want to post too much stuff about things you don't care about, but at the same time, I'm going to keep talking about the music that moves me. So, but a lot of the newer stuff I got, I don't think anyone is going to care much about. So I plucked some things out of my collection from things I've bought in the last year or so. It's newish. I will always call my channel newish. So, and just a quick word about Sinead O'Connor. She died. I've never really been. You probably know that Sinead O'Connor's dead. As of now, there's no word on how she died, and she wasn't that old. She's only 56, but she's, as we know, had a lot of mental issues, and her son died last year. I mean, I can't imagine how brutal that would be to lose a kid. Can't even imagine. I've never been much of a Sinead O'Connor fan musically, but I've always really appreciated her as a person. I feel like she's always been completely and totally unafraid to voice what she thinks. And if that flies in the face of the powers that be and the status quo, she didn't care. She said it anyway, and I'll always respect her for that. People always labeled her as controversial, but that's the world we live in, right? If you question the status quo, then you're labeled as controversial. The things she pointed out, I think, are just truth. But yeah, when you speak truth to power, you get labeled and you get judged, and yeah. So yeah, not never a fan of her music really. I do have a couple things, like I have the album with Nothing Compares to You, a Prince song. What is that album called? I do not want what I haven't got, right? I have that. I have a couple of her singles, the one where Hank Shockley did the remix, I Am Stretched on Your Grave, I think it's called. Hank Shockley, a Public Enemy. So yeah, I like that album. It's okay. Never a fan of her music, but I felt like I was a fan of her. So yeah, it's too bad. I can't imagine, yeah, losing a kid. She already had mental problems that she was always open about. I felt like she was someone that this world needed. So anyway, a quick mention to Sinead O'Connor, who is dead at 56. But I'm going to get into my new stuff now. Newish Record Thursday. Here we go. So I'm going to hold up this real quick. I bought this a year ago, maybe? A year and a half, 2 years? I don't know. This was a record store day release. This is Flowered Up Weekender. And I talked about the original releases in my Weatherall video. And I hope someday you choose to watch that. That was the first video I did almost 3 years ago now. I rambled for 80 minutes about Andy Weatherall. He had died that year, and I love him. And I will always have a lot to say about him. In fact, I've learned since then to never post a video that long. Although people have watched it, but it's Weatherall. There's a lot to say. His songs were long, and my video was long, and there's just a long list of things to say about him. I'm going to pick out a few records from his catalog at some point and talk about them. Just focus on one album. But this is Flowered Up Weekender. And this came out in 1990, 1991, right? Something like that. This is a re-release, obviously. I don't know that it has the original year that it was released. 92. There you go. Yeah, that sounds right. 92. Really cool song. It has the original version, which is like 13 minutes long. And then on the B side, it has the original film soundtrack, which is 18 minutes of Weekender. It's already a long song to begin with. Classic. It gets lumped in with that, that whole Manchester baggy scene that was going on in the late 80s, early 90s. And it's a good song. I like it. It's got a groove. It rocks. The vocals are funny. It just captures a time. It's a very specific time. It's fun. It's got that Happy Mondays. I wouldn't go so far to say it has a Farm vibe. Those of you who remember the Farm, but it definitely has that Happy Mondays kind of vibe to it. Just fun, dance, club track. One of those songs that, when you were totally high and stoned on and it came on, you just lost your shit. It's a fun song. But what's even better is this. These are the Andy Weatherall remixes. These are epic, man. I already had these originals, but I just, when they got reissued, I was like, I gotta buy these again. My originals are so played out, it's like, I gotta have this. And that one was a yellow label on pink vinyl, and then this is a pink label on yellow vinyl. It actually sounds okay. I think the original pressings sound better. But yeah, you get like a 15 and a half minute mix and a 17-minute mix. 32 minutes of remixes from Andy Weatherall. That's what he did back then. Every time he did a remix, it had to be epic. And every time Weatherall did a remix back then, it was like a big event. You guys remember that? When Weatherall did anything, there was like a huge buzz about it, and deservedly so, man. Weatherall he couldn't be stopped. Really, his entire career, he was so prolific, and most everything he did was extremely good. He had a really awesome take on life and death and music and vinyl culture. He just had the right attitude. He was funny as hell. I recommend you go pull up any interview you can find on Andy Weatherall. Really smart, well-read, funny dude, and extremely talented. And these are some of his best remixes to this day, I think. The Flowered Up remixes, just epic. Grand stuff. This is Future Sounds of Jazz 15. It's a series, as you can see. Every time these pop up, I grab these quickly. They're usually 4 or 5 record sets, and this is on the Compost label. Compost has been around over 25 years now. Been around a long time, putting out absolutely stunning music. And they put out these comps every couple of years or so, and it's always mixed. It's a mixture of like already released stuff on the label and then unreleased stuff. And this label is just dedicated to unique and original electronic music. However you want to categorize it, but it's usually it's dance music at its core, but it's all kinds of dance music, all kinds of different influences. They're not shy to take chances and release records that are different. And Compost is a label that I typically buy anything. If I see it on Compost, I grab it. The guy who runs this label, what's your name? Michael Reinboth, right? Really nice guy. He's a seller on Discogs too, and he's great. He's one of the best sellers on Discogs. He has his own label, sells a lot of stuff. Super nice guy. Very warm with his people. If you buy records from him, he's very approachable. Very nice guy. I've bought several things from him, and communication's always very nice with him. And this is an excellent label. I try to pick up everything I can on Compost. These especially. I wish he put out more of these. But, you don't want to oversaturate it too much. But these are always a treasure, man. I have all of these, and every one of them is fantastic. I mean, you've got Class Compliance. I'm gonna pull out some of my favorite songs on this particular one. And there's always remixes on here that you can't find elsewhere. All Is Well, Don Carlos, Kevin Yost, and you get some funky unreleased stuff on here. And a lot of it is stuff you've never heard. And I love that. I want to be introduced to new stuff. I don't just want to sit around and listen to stuff I know and I've already heard or from artists that I know. I want to be introduced to other stuff. You never know what's hiding out there. And, these Future Sounds of Jazz compilations do a really nice job of that. There's always stuff. I mean, at least half of these, every time I listen to it, I'm like, I've never heard this. I've never heard of this band. If you're interested in experimental electronic music, pick this up. Pick these up. Any of these. Future Sounds of Jazz series. You really can't lose. Here we go. I'm going to hold this up if best I can. This is Andy Bell. This came out last year. Flickr. And if you don't know who Andy Bell is, I recommend you look him up. It's going to be a lot quicker than how I can explain him, but he's been around a long time. He's been in the band Ride, one of my all-time favorite bands, Ride. He's played for Oasis. He's a guitarist. But he has his own label now. It's called Sonic Cathedral, and I just bought the most recent release on that label. Dot Allison has a new album. Did you know this? Did anybody know this? Dot Allison of One Dove has a new album. I bought that shit in a microsecond. I cannot wait to get that. I am so excited to hear this. I love Dot Allison for multiple reasons. You know what I'm talking about. She's awesome though. Love Dot Allison, everything she's done. I've thought about doing a video on her, doing the whole One Dove Dot Allison connection. I thought that would be an interesting video. Weatherall is in that conversation too. But that's another video. Andy Bell runs the label that the new Dot Allison album is on, Sonic Cathedral. And he makes music that the hipsters like to call dream pop, shoegaze. I just like to call it good music that has very dense, layered guitars, echoey, breathy, dreamy vocals, but very layered, immaculately produced music. Music that kind of exists in that Beach Boys realm. Kind of a Beach Boysy vibe, but in a modern context. You know, a lot of this, Andy Bell he's been exploring electronic music a lot lately too. So he's been incorporating that sound with his own traditional sound, and it's really good. I really love what he's been doing. And this record's cool. These are intentionally blurry. If this looks blurry to you, well, it is. That's what the jacket looks like. Nice gatefold sleeve. These Sonic Cathedral pressings are very nice. Very well done. The packaging is always thoughtful. You can see that there's care going into these. Usually they're all kinds of wacky colored vinyl. This is on clear, as you can see. Good pressing too. I have no complaints about this pressing. I've really enjoyed everything Andy Bell has done on this label. He's onto something. I very much enjoy it. Everything on the label. There's been a lot of Pie Corner Audio stuff that comes out on his label too. Pie Corner Audio remixed his previous album. There's a whole remix album of it. Pie Corner Audio is an electronic guy. He uses a lot of old modular equipment, a lot of analog equipment. He's got a retro sound, but in a modern context. Kind of like Andy Bell. I think his stuff is progressing and evolving in a really nice way. And this is a good album. Everything he's done recently, I've been impressed with. And this has been out for over 20 years. This reissue came out last year or 2 years ago. I'm going to end on this. This is an old record and a newer pressing. This has unreleased stuff on it. The original album was a single album. This is a triple. 3 records in here. And it's Ulrich Schnauss. Faraway Trains Passing By. This is now a classic. It took a while for this to gain traction, and I know because I was there. I bought this record new back in, God, what was it, 2000 now? 2001? Has it been that long? Wow. It's been over 20 years, I know that. When I first bought this, it came out on a label called City Center Offices. And I don't, is it on, is that what this is? Scripted Realities is what it says here. It's a Play It Again, Sam offshoot. This originally came out on a label called City Center Offices. And City Center Offices was a label back in the early 2000s. There was this whole movement of like, they called it Click House, but another horrible, horrible name for it. But there was like this movement, people like Christian Klein and bands like Isan or Ison, I don't know how to pronounce it, Solvent. Bands like that put out this quirky little electronic music that was very melodic, had vocals, kind of quirky. Lolly Puna is another one. Excuse me. Lots of stuff like that came out, and this kind of got caught up in that. And when this was released, I remember it wasn't that hard to find for about a year or so. It just didn't seem to gain any traction, but it floored me, man. When I first heard this, I was like, wow, who is Ulrich Schnauss? I later discovered I had another album from him, and I didn't know it was him. He put out an album, I want to say it was called it's Seventh Sign, the Seventh Seal. Do you know what I'm talking about? It was like a jungle album. It was good. A CD only, but I had it, and I remember listening to it years later, and I looked at the credits. I'm like, oh, this is Ulrich Schnauss? Like, you wouldn't know it from listening to this. It was totally different. This, like Andy Bell before him, that dreamy sound, that's what this is, but in electronic instrumental form. And Ulrich Schnauss is now a member of Tangerine Dream. Did you know that? Pretty interesting stuff. Because Ulrich Schnauss, you know, I think he's my age, right? I think he's in his 40s. He's not that old. Tangerine Dream, those dudes are well into their 70s, I'm guessing. So Ulrich, you know, he's a member of one of the most influential electronic bands in history now. So that's no small feat for that band to invite you into what they do. And I think this is a huge reason why right here. He's put out albums after this. I don't think he's ever done anything better than this. And this is a really great compilation. You get the first original 6 tracks, and then a bunch of unreleased stuff. Some of it was previously released, but you get 3 records worth of Schnauss material from the early 2000s. Really good release, and it's very nice packaging. It's a triple gatefold. I'm going to have a hard time holding this up, but there's the first fold. And then keeps on folding. By the way, I'm sorry for my mic. Damn it. I'm having a hard time getting my sound together, man. I watched my last video I made, the Pogues video, and I heard some clicking. I'm really sorry, you guys. I'm trying to figure this out. It's not, it should be easy, but it's not. I'm having a hard time finding a decent sound for you guys. I really apologize for that. I'm working on it. Here is the label for record 1. And you know what? This is a nicer pressing than the original vinyl, because these songs are like, they're all like 6-7 minutes long, and it was a single record, and there are 6 tracks. So there are 3 songs on each tracks on that original pressing, so it went over 20 minutes. It sounded okay, but not as good as these. These 3 records, the tracks are split into 2 records per side rather than 3. And so the songs have more room to breathe. Here's another label. This is record 3. You get 2 songs. You do get 3 songs on this one, but this is a really nice pressing. They did it right. You do get these white paper inners, but they didn't really seem to affect these. These can affect them, not in this case. So very nice pressing. And if you love Faraway Trains Passing By, I'm assuming you have this already, but if you somehow did not know about this, pick it up. And I still think it's in print. It's not hard to find. Yeah. A stone cold classic at this point. I think this is, you know, one of the most revered electronic albums of the last 25 years. If I'm wrong, someone tell me. Took a couple of years for people to catch on to this one. I remember at the time, man, I was promoting it myself. I was like, you got to hear this record, man. I got so many people turned on to this record. You know, I got a couple of ex-girlfriends who now this is their favorite record they've ever heard. I'm proud. I'm glad I can do that. It's fun to introduce something to someone and then it becomes one of their favorites. That's always a good feeling. And I hope I do that for you guys. When you guys tell me that you guys have discovered something after my recommendation, you have no idea the warm fuzzies that gives me. That's the whole reason I do this fucking channel, seriously. The fact that someone can then go discover a record after I recommended it, man, that means the world to me. So yeah, that's my newish release Thursday. Check this stuff out. You know, as always, if you're a fan of strange and wonderful and different music, you know, look no further than these records. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.